Good evening and welcome to Etihad Cargo Connections. I'm your host, Rowan Anderson, and tonight I'm joined by trainer Ian Williams. How are we tonight, Ian?
Yeah, we're good, thank you. It's not tonight here. It's coming up to lunchtime.
It's coming up to lunchtime. I hope I don't take you away for too long so you, you can get a bite to eat. So we'll just start at the start. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in London actually, but soon moved to Devon and was brought up in Devon, right down in the sort of boot part of the UK. So great part of the world, close to the beach, close to areas of exciting landscape. So yeah, good area to be brought up in.
Yeah, my family are originally two generations up from Stirling in Scotland. So
Okay,
hoping to go
completely
to
the
the
other
UK.
direction.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. So we'll start. What was it about horses that first got you passionate, and when was your first experience around horses and racing?
Okay, I was quite fortunate because my father trained horses in the West Country down in Devon. And although he only had a little stable, I was very involved from an early age, so always around horses, and ended up obviously working, helping my father, riding them, and doing all those things whilst I was at school.
And as you said, your father was a trainer, but is it correct that you initially didn't want to become a trainer and follow in his footsteps?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd been to college and studied accountancy and business, and I realised that my father worked very, very hard for not a lot back, really. And he had a passion for racing, but really didn't. I think he probably lost money doing it, although made any money. And although he was successful, it was a very hard life. And he used to ride the horses, shoe the horses, drive them to the races. He literally did everything, and it was 7 days a week, and there was rarely any time for anything else.
And how big was his stable that he ran?
He probably had a dozen stables, so
Oh,
anything from sort of 8 to 12 horses, maybe
geez.
a few more on occasion.
Yeah. And so you mentioned you studied business and accountancy. When was the point where you realized that that wasn't for you and that it was time to follow your dad's
I
footsteps?
I actually, at the age of 18, started on a trainee manager's route with a well-known betting group in the UK, William Hill, and ended up running betting shops at the age of probably 18 and a half. And I was doing that for 6 months. And it was a little tedious. They were very dark and dingy places. And although I thought it would be a great way of using both of my skills with the horses and with the numerical stuff, with William Hill. It was interesting, but I found myself doing quite well quite quickly, but bored to tears. So I actually saw an advert in the racing newspaper in the UK, the Sporting Life, which was a trainer called Jenny Pittman advertising for an assistant. And I thought, oh, that sounds like a great idea. So I applied for the job and got an interview, and off I went to Mrs. Pittman's, who frightened the living daylights out of me. And I had to probably be a little bit unliberal with the truth, telling her I was a little bit older than I was. And eventually she took me on trial, and I had 4.5 wonderful years there.
And how old were you at the time?
I was just turned 19.
And how old did you say you were?
I might have said I was 21.
And it's interesting you mentioned William Hill. They were big down here in Australia as well for a few years, but I don't know what happened with them as an online betting agency.
Yeah, I think they're still quite big in the UK, but I don't know what went on. It's
Yeah.
it's all that market's got very strong, and it's not something that I understand too well, so I don't know.
And there's a lot of betting agencies now, as you said. So when did you first take out your training license?
Well, I spent sort of my apprenticeship with Jenny Pittman. Then I worked for another English trainer called Martin Pipe, and they were both. He was the champion national hunt trainer, so that was very much the national hunt side of things done. But I was very fortunate to get a job as assistant to a French trainer called Francois Duman, who was very successful in his travels to Japan and Hong Kong, and had a very nice string of jumping horses in France, probably the best jumpers that France has ever seen as a group at one time. And then I learned a lot about flat racing with him because he had a great string of flat horses as well. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. And you've had some great milestones and achievements through your career. One I saw that, was, I blew my socks off, was the feat of winning at every race course in the UK. What was that achievement like, as well as what have been some other highlights or memorable wins
Yeah,
of your career?
I think it was quite memorable to have trained a winner at every flat and national hunt track in Britain. I think UK includes 2 of Northern Ireland, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's correct or not. But yeah, that was quite something, because I don't believe anybody else has ever done that, or nobody's ever come up with anybody that's done it. Let's put it that way. I think one of my first highlights was a horse called Batman Sonora that I trained for a French client, and we took him from England back to France and won the equivalent of the French King George, which was a very valuable steeplechase.
Yeah.
And that was a fantastic day.
Yeah.
First winner at the Cheltenham Festival. That was Ballyalton, which was an exceptional day out as well. But we've been fortunate to have a couple of winners at Royal Ascot, so they were fantastic. And I'd have to say Sir Maximilian winning in Dubai over 5 furlongs was quite a day on Super Saturday as well. So yeah, so Sir Maximilian in Dubai on Super Saturday was quite something. And the Royal Ascot winners were amazing.
Yeah. And your tagline is "Passion to succeed never dies." Who have been some horses that have either assisted or been influential in your success so far throughout your career?
I think some of the small ones right at the beginning were really influential. Horses like Governor Daniel, the Prince, Auburn Boy. They were not the greatest horses, but they won lots of races.
Yeah.
And they were winning small races, but they made a difference because they got you noticed as having the ability to train winners. So that really got us going. But I think Sir Maximilian helped enormously on the international stage. And we were very lucky a few years ago to have a horse called Magic Circle. And he actually started favourite for a Melbourne Cup 5 years ago. So he was very helpful, although on the day he didn't run as well as he could have done. But those things have really helped in an international way.
What year was that?
Probably 5 years ago, I'd say.
Okay.
Might be 5 at most. Yeah, 5 years ago. It was the year it rained really heavily and got very, very wet.
Yeah.
That probably happens a lot in Australia on Melbourne Cup Day, but
it probably does. Happens. I'm in. Do you know Australia very well?
Well, as well as looking at it on a map. And
I'm in Queensland, the northern state. So we have the Magic Millions, and it was actually rained out by the second race. It just got too dangerous to ride. So
really disappointed. Did they rearrange that, or was it lost and gone?
It was run. So that's Queensland's biggest race. It's a whole weekend for 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, as well as they obviously have like the big Magic Millions auctions on the Gold Coast as well.
Yeah.
And it runs on a Saturday, and it was actually postponed to the Thursday.
Oh, well, at least they were clever enough to be able to postpone it so you didn't lose it.
Yeah, but people were so upset because they were like, on a Saturday they can go be festive, we'll put it, like they enjoy being around here, and on a Thursday they had to call in sick. So, but yeah, it got sorted, and now they have a all-weather track, a poly track down there as well to accommodate for those kinds of things, which is pretty good.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
So before we speak about the Dubai Carnival, I was reading today about Enemy, and he's going to be the first runner you've ever had in Saudi.
Yes.
So lining up in the Red Sea turf, tell us a little bit about him, how he came to be with you, and how he's looking ahead of the weekend.
Well, we bought Enemy from France. A good friend of mine, Rupert Pritchard Gordon, does some business and bloodstock agency for us in France, and we bought him out of Francois Gaffard's yard, and we didn't pay huge money for him. I think he was about €90,000. But he'd been a decent horse, and he had a very, very good pedigree. But we thought there might be some improvement to come over time as he matured. He was a 4-year-old at the time. And we actually sent him out to Dubai last season, and we got into a little bit of trouble with him because he had only run the once, and we were struggling for another race. So we actually put him in the 2-mile listed event, and it was more a case of getting him a second run in Dubai as much as anything. And he ran a huge race that day, and showed us that he stayed, basically, which we wouldn't have been sure about beforehand. And he came back to the UK and won a decent handicap. Then he ran a great race at Ascot in a listed event, and probably should have won over 2 miles, but just didn't get the run of the race.
Yeah.
But we lost him a little bit after that, and we really didn't know why. And we ran him at Glorious Goodwood in the Goodwood Cup. I thought it'd be a race that would cut up, because there were so many good horses in it, and I thought they'd all shy away from each other. Well, they didn't, and it was probably one of the better runnings of the Goodwood Cup. But he didn't perform as well as he could do, and Will Buick rode him that day and said, look, Ian, to be honest with you, he was keen, and I don't think he really settles. So we put him away and waited for the Ebor with him, and I thought we were going to the Ebor with a really good chance. David Egan rode him that day, and he never really got going. And David came in and said that 1.6 miles was too short for him. So we were having a bit of a quandary where we had 2 world-class jockeys telling us different things. So we went back and looked at the horse, and took a view. And whilst he's never made any noises or anything, we took a view that would use our local wind expert, Ben Brain, and we had the horse radio scoped. And Ben said, look, Ian, he said, there's nothing wrong with this horse. And I said, there's something wrong with the horse. Let's send him again. And we sent him again. And eventually it was like a hey presto moment. There was a collapse of his larynx and a few other things going on. So at that point, we knew here we have a horse that's performing to 100 plus on every run, but he actually is struggling with his breathing. So we had his win done, and his first race back was the 1.5 mile handicap in Dubai in January. And to be perfectly honest, I thought he'd probably need his run because we'd missed his prep race in the UK due to the frost. And he went out and bolted up, and it was a nice surprise, and over a trip that we thought would be on the short side for him. So the Red Sea became the obvious target after that, and that's what he's been trained for.
And the Red Sea, you mentioned the Ebor as well. Trawlerman, the horse that won that Ebor, is up in the Red Sea as well. So it should be a good matchup now that Enemy's back, playing the way he can play to his potential.
Yeah, well, it'll be nice to see what he achieves this time. We actually thought he'd run very well in the Ebor, and he was obviously disappointing. And our other runner in the Ebor, Alfred Boucher, finished second to Trawlerman, just beaten ahead. Yeah. So we could do with a bit of sort of action back from Trawlerman. Maybe he can give us a better chance this time.
Yeah. And you mentioned 2 runs in Meydan, 1 win by length. Before that, ran 4th in the Group 3 Nad Al Sheba Trophy. How does he perform, going from the UK to Dubai? How does his form change? Does he find it easier to run in Meydan?
No, I don't think so. One thing that we have sort of noticed is he's as we get to know him better, is he appears to be better fresh, but he copes with traveling really well. He'd only been in Dubai for 10 days when he ran in the handicap and ran very well. I think he enjoys the flat, fast surface of the Meydan track. And the nice thing is I think he'll enjoy the fast surface in Saudi, but it's a flat track, and he has plenty of pace as well. So as long as he settles early in his races, he normally finishes well.
And he's nominated for the Dubai Shima Classic and the Gold Cup. How does his program look post Red Sea Turf? Is it going to be a case of, with a month, in between Saudi this weekend and those 2 races that he's nominated for, will he come home and then go back again, or will he just go?
No, he's been based in Dubai this winter, so which again, having been based in Dubai, I think is advantageous when it's only a 2.5 hour flight to Saudi, and he's already accustomed to the heat and the time difference. So those are positive things. But after the Red Sea, he'll go straight back to Dubai, and we've accepted an invitation to the Gold Cup. The Shima Classic was just sort of an entry. It done so well over 1.5 miles, but that can be a really, obviously, very, very competitive race, and we'll probably stick to where we have some chance realistically, as opposed to just running for running's sake.
And is there a plan at all in place post Saudi and Dubai, or will it just be a case of seeing how he performs in Saudi and Dubai and then setting a plan after that?
Yeah, I think the plan will evolve one way or the other. It's going to be Saudi's going to be very interesting because it's different territory, and we're taking a horse there that we know has had a problem, and we're hoping the problem has been solved. And how he runs there will probably make little difference to what he does in Dubai, or no difference. So hopefully he's fit and well, and he can go and run in the Dubai Gold Cup, and then we'll sort of sit down with the owners and make a plan as to what he does after that.
And Spirit of Light came to you after having raced in through the UAE. Tell us a little bit about how he came to be with you, a little bit about him, as well as his, Dark Angel pedigree, knowing well and truly how, anything by Dark Angel performs.
Well, it's quite an amusing story. He came to me, his owner Saeed Hashish, who's Dubai based, sent me a horse the year before last called East Asia. Now, East Asia had run, I think he was a 5-year-old maiden, having run about 16 times. And he actually turned up in the yard, and he's not a big horse, very athletic, but not over big and not with the greatest amount of scope. But I sort of looked at him and thought, why on earth has this chap sent this horse to the UK? So at that point, I think he was rated 69. At the end of that UK season, he was rated nigh on 100, having won 4 races. He went out to Dubai, ran very well in the listed race, and was actually invited to run in the World Cup. So East Asia had travelled from Dubai as a less than 70 rated maiden, done his winning in the UK, then been invited back to Dubai to race, which was quite bizarre, really, but just showed how much it improved during the year, and he acquitted himself very well in both races in Dubai. So the same owner owns Spirit of Light. Spirit of Light was really disappointing in the UK. We never really got to the bottom of him this season, and his 2 runs back in handicap company were very good in Dubai. He was probably just a little outclassed last time, and he starts on Friday back in handicap company. And although carrying top weight, and he doesn't have the best of draw in 13, but he copes with the track well. And Antonio Fresu, who's been riding him, gets on well with him. Rode him work yesterday, and we're all happy and ready to go.
And it helps that to have a hoop like Antonio in the saddle as well, especially how he's performing in Dubai at the moment.
Well, he's had a great year in Dubai. I think I was sat. He finished second on Spirit of Light in his last handicap run, and he was a little bit unfortunate. He got a bit of trouble in running, and I was sat watching him the next day at Gerard Ali, and I think he won 4 races. And I was just thinking, well, why couldn't he have won yesterday? Why couldn't he have had that luck yesterday?
Yeah. And Spirit of Light's nominated for Dubai Turf, Alcor Sprint, Dubai Gold Cup, and the Godolphin Mile. What will his program ahead look like?
He can't have ended up in the Gold Cup, can he? In all honesty, he's probably not good enough to race there, and won't be high enough to qualify for any of those races. Yeah. So he'll probably come back to the UK in March, and we'll start planning towards some handicap races here.
Yeah, and you mentioned him before, East Asia, the older member of the bunch, 8 years old, had some impressive wins at Goodwood and Newbury, has ran second in a Group 3 in Meydan, and is now nominated for the Group 2 Dubai Gold Cup. You mentioned, how he came to be with you, East Asia, and off the back of that, Spirit of Light came to you. What does East Asia's program look like? over the coming weeks leading into the carnival?
East Asia was due to go to Dubai in January, and he suffered with a sickness pre-traveling, and we were hoping to get him out there in February. It hasn't happened. East Asia now won't run in Dubai this winter, so he'll stay here and be aimed at the staying events here. He's back in good shape, and it took nearly 7 weeks to get him eating, drinking, and looking. He'd had quite a nasty shock to his system, but we understand why, and it was actually that same shock that stopped him from running for 2 races in Dubai last year. So we understand that one of the things we do to help horses travel doesn't actually help him; it hinders him.
Okay. Yeah. And so you've got Green Team. Green Team's had 3 starts in Maidan, nominated for the Gold Cup as well. A little bit about him and what his program looks like, and if he'll be joining Enemy with a campaign for the Gold Cup.
Sadly, he won't be joining Enemy because he's been a little disappointing. His first run was good. His second run, he just saw far too much daylight, didn't settle, and he ran well last time over a trip that was very much short of his best, but off a rating of 90, which he is currently, he wouldn't get into the Gold Cup and would probably be a waste. And I see him being very effective back in the UK this spring and summer.
Yeah. So the plans for the major races in Dubai will be all up to Enemy from the stable.
All up to Enemy as our representative this year.
That would make a great headline, I reckon. I think he looks like a good horse, and yeah, I'm keen to see what else he can do, especially this weekend in Saudi as well. And how large is the stable currently?
We have 120 stables based in the heart of the UK, not far from Birmingham Airport.
Yeah.
And we have quite a big team of jumpers in at the moment, probably 30 jumpers on the go and 70 flat horses. So the string is around 100. That can go up and can go down a little during the year when the 2 seasons cross over. But yeah, we're busy. Got lots to look forward to. A few 2-year-olds this year, some nice 3-year-olds, and hopefully some more horses that we can bring to Maidan next year.
And you mentioned earlier, you started with jump training as well. Does it keep you fresh and on your toes training both jumps and flat horses?
No, I think it keeps me worn out and knackered most of the time. I love jump racing. It's a wonderful sport, and I love the people. But it's a very difficult job to manage as a business. It's tough. It's hard to find good horses, and the returns are relatively small against the outlay. Whereas and it doesn't have the international opportunities that flat racing does.
Yeah.
We've found in our own little way that flat racing, with the international opportunities around the world, we've been fortunate enough to have a couple of runners in the Melbourne Cup. We've been to Dubai. We're going to Saudi. We've had runners on the ice in St. Moritz, and we've travelled all around Europe with horses. So we've seen and done lots of things and been a little bit more than participant in them. We've been competitive in those racing events. So the flat can be a lot more rewarding in a financial and business way. But national hunt racing's it's real coming from the heart stuff. It's proper racing.
Yeah. And you mentioned, taking horses internationally, St. Moritz, Melbourne Cup, Australia, obviously, and Dubai. How long have you been taking horses out to Dubai?
Sir Maximilian was our first about 12 years ago, I think. Yeah. But it's nice to travel horses, but it's all about having the horses good enough to go.
Yeah.
And that's what's becoming more and more competitive with our racing here in the UK. You might have a decent horse, but the Australians want to buy it, the Qataris want to buy it, the Saudis want to buy it, Hong Kong wants it. So it's really getting very difficult to find horses that we can compete with at that level.